connection. That's always good to hear. Okay, now we go back to this page. Come on. Okay. And that, there we go. Closed captioning is turned off. That's cool. I mean, you guys can have it on, but I don't have it on my side. Let me see. I need to pop out the chat. Turn off top chat, turn on live chat. Move this over here. Come on. Grab that window. There we go. I think that's everything. And there we go. Hope you folks are doing well this Sunday morning. At least that's what it is here in my neck of the woods. In some places, it's Monday. Hopefully, Garfield doesn't live in those places, because Garfield doesn't like Mondays, just FYI. Let's see here. Feisty Crabman, hello friends, how you doing? Delightfully chilly Central Texas. Well, that's fun. Good morning. Hello, everyone. From a cloudy Mexico City, I have Gene Stealer Cults and Astra Militarum Combat Patrol boxes ready for kit bashing. Fun. Nice. Classic Gene Stealer Cult kit bash. I love it, indeed. Good morning from Overcast, Rhode Island. No hobby stuff going on. Unfortunately, working on packing to move to my new house. Well, that's kind of exciting now, right? Yeah. Good morning from a sunny Newark. Hello from pleasantly chilly Copenhagen. Catching the show before a concert tonight. Nice. Good morning from a sleepy Washington, D.C. How you doing, Fungazi? I'm a bit sleepy myself, but it's just because I was up late. Let's see here. Dragonfire, how you doing? Good morning from San Antonio, Texas. Rainy Netherlands. A rainy, foggy Tennessee. It's a D&D day for me. Nice. It was real rainy all day Friday, but then yesterday was nice, and today was nice. I mean, it's still cool, but that's fine. 2 degrees, sunny Lake District. I'm wondering if that's Celsius. I hope that's Celsius. Starting a Templars box, but I do. But yeah, I'll chat about that in a sec. Morning chat, how you doing? Good morning from Dublin, Ireland. Painting dudes from Leviathan. That's nice. Fine cloudy day from Saskatchewan. Always fun to say Saskatchewan. Let's see here. Portland, Oregon. Hello from Des Moines. Sunny UK. Bremerton, Washington. Working on Space Wolves Combat Patrol. Nice. Cool and still damp mid-Michigan. Nice. Sylvania, Ohio. Good morning from another Tennessean. It's fall chilly. Going to decorate for Halloween. More classic spooky vibes. That's fun. Hope you're having a good Sunday. So far, so good. Got some coffee, so that's good. I had some breakfast, kind of. I'm not going to the in-laws for lunch today because my father-in-law has COVID. Again. He seems to be doing okay, but we're just not, going to go over there. And so, yeah, I'm going to be working most of the afternoon. I'm working on the layout for the zine, which will be coming out in not quite, well, I guess sort of mid-November. Early mid-November is what we're saying. Less than a month away is what we'll say. Brisk, Rhode Island, just starting on Tau Combat Patrol. See, that's another one I have. The 3 main ones that I'm considering, and it's really only 2 main ones that I'm considering. I have the Black Templar one, but I don't know if I want to do that right now. I just painted a bunch of black with Death Watch, so I'm like, I'm not sure. But the 2 ones that I'm considering are either Tau or Adeptus Mechanicus. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't done Tau in a long time, it'd be something, it would be a change for sure. Painting some Bistarium. Nice. That stuff's fun. Gloomy Damp, South Ontario. Nice. Haley, greetings. Good morning from Taneytown, Maryland. I'm assuming that's what MD is. I can never remember on some of those. Going shopping today for hobby stuff. Nice. Good morning from Rhode Island. How goes it today? Not too bad. Hello from Ireland. Considering an Eldar Combat Patrol myself, especially with the new Scorpions. Nice. Good morning from North Dakota. Painting some Custodes. Nice. Good morning from Dreary, Ohio. October painting continues. Good to hear. Singapore. Nice. West Michigan. Always like saying Paducah. Paducah is also a lot of fun. VJ Morph, how you doing? Let's see here. Upstate New York. Aspect Warriors on the painting table. Nice. Good afternoon from Warsaw, Poland, as I prepare materials for the Vampire Masquerade session. Nice. Like Vampire the Masquerade, the RPG? I've never played that. My wife has, but I've never played it. Just finished building and converting a Salamander Combat Patrol. Cool. Morning from rainy Syracuse, New York, doing game prep for second edition D&D game tonight, running my players through old school Scourge of the Slave Lords, 1986. Nice. Got to step out for wonton soup. Don't be too funny while I'm gone. Well, I can't promise anything, but we'll see how it goes. Considering Tau again, deja vu all over again. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, they would be fun to paint, kind of, I think. Plus, there's a kind of a big robot in there. I kind of like big robots. I don't know. I'm just pretty sure that, like, I also want to paint the big Dune Crawler thing in the AdMech, but I think that army is kind of garbage. But it would be nice to have a vehicle for once, kind of. You know, I don't know. We'll see. Warming up in Townsville. How you doing? Hello from Quebec City. Organizing my airbrush tote. Nice. What's the go-to skirmish game nowadays? I don't know if there's a go-to skirmish game. It kind of depends on what you like. There's a lot of skirmish games out there, for sure. If you want to find the one that you'll probably be able to find pickup games at your local shop, depending on your local shop and what the general meta is like, it's probably Kill Team. I'm not a big fan of the new Kill Team, but it's probably your best bet. Otherwise, it's kind of the group that you build. You know what I mean? It's the meta that you decide to bring around. Caught you before the end. Just started, actually. I'm crazy, so I've got over 15 Combat Patrol nods. Wow. Yeah, I've got a bunch. I've got 2 painted completely. I've got Death Watch, and I've got the Space Marines that came in the Leviathan box. I was going to say Indomitus box, but that's last season or last year or whatever. But I'm also going to be doing Necrons as well, because I have a Necron force, a third completed. I have the Scorpec Destroyers. I did those back when Indomitus did come out, actually. And I did a unit of Warriors. Now, in Combat Patrol, the Warriors are supposed to be 5 guys with one type of gun and 5 guys with the other type of gun. And I only have 10 guys with one type of gun. So I'm going to build and paint 5 more guys with the other guns, because I'm crazy. Like, everyone's just like, you could just like put something on the base to let you know that these guys are the other ones or whatever. I'm like, yeah, but nah. So, but then I still also need to paint 3 bases of Scarabs. The leader, who I am actually halfway through with now at this point, he's sitting on my gaming table, or on my hobby table. And then I got to build and paint the Doomstalker, which is kind of a big boy. But I feel like that one's probably going to be one. That one's kind of not on this, like, will I do it? Because it's already, like I said, at least a third, if not a little bit more than that done. So I will do it, but yes. Morning from a sunny Milwaukee after several days of just rain. Yeah, Friday was just rain all dumb day, and I didn't like it. New kill team set has me hyped. I swear they mentioned that all Eldar aspect warriors may be included with the new one. Thinking of Drakari Combat Patrol myself, wary of vehicles though. The thing is, there's a lot of armies that don't have a lot of stuff to deal with bigger stuff. Like last time I played against Sam, well, that's not true. Last time I played against Sam was last weekend at Dragonfall. But last time I played against Sam's Necrons, I used my Deathwatch, and my Deathwatch don't particularly have much to go up against that Doomstalker, especially if he keeps it in the back and just snipes with it. There might be some things I could do there, but it's not an easy, because I've got a couple of guys with grenade launchers, so I can fire crack grenades and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a little bit tough. Vampire Masquerade 5th edition. It's our first session, so I hope it goes okay. Nice. Is that the most recent edition? I know that Renegade Game Studios started producing it, but I can't remember if they're at 6th edition or if 5th edition is the most recent. Michael Strange, how you doing? Brisk sunny day here in the Blue Ridge Mountains. I spent yesterday gutting and reorganizing my hobby room, work from home office. I'll try to finish while listening. Nice, nice. Morning from Clearwater. Hope you're doing well. Would you still recommend Blood Bowl as a good starting war game? I mean, I think if you like sports, it's not a bad thing. It's relatively self-contained. One thing you don't really have to worry about really is terrain, because you're playing on a pitch and there's, really not terrain on the pitch. So if you buy one of those boxes that's got the pitch in it and the cards and all the little extra little, tokens and greeblies and things that you need in the dice, because the dice are custom, then you can just buy, new teams from time to time and like add on special players and things like that. So that's a benefit, I think, to Blood Bowl, is that the fact that it is, if you can get a starter box, which generally you can, but depends on your local area, depends on what you are willing to order versus just, buy locally or whatever. But if you can get a starter box, you can generally kind of play and go from there. And that can work out pretty well for you, but it's not like one of those games where it becomes like a huge like ecosystem, like a lifestyle game where you've really got to like commit and stuff, because it's still skirmishy enough for sure. And like I said, again, really very little in the way of terrain, so that's kind of cool too. And it's not one of those games where I'm like, boy, this game would be better if it had terrain. I wish it had terrain. Kind of like Warhammer Underworlds is a little bit like that, like there's little terrain cards, but if you wish you had like again, people have made 3D card or 3D terrain that's designed to fit on the hexes and like do all that kind of stuff, and that's kind of cool. But it's kind of a bit more board gamey. In this game, this is one of the few games out there where it makes sense why there's no terrain, because it's a football field. So, or a pitch as they call it over there. But yeah, so it's not a bad game. I just am not a big sports fan, so for me it doesn't really resonate as much. But Rochester, New York, working on Titan Forge Ogre Pirates. Nice. Looking to add the new Striking Scorpions to my classic Metal Scorps. Nice. Let's see here. I read that. Stargrave is good. Stargrave is a good game, for sure. At work in lovely Surrey, UK, but looking at the Cities of Sigmar steel helms, thinking they'd look great with las guns. Honestly, I want to take some of the Cities of Sigmar models and give them bolters, but like the maybe old school bolters, not like the bolt rifles, but like the kind of, if I can find older kind of bolters and things like that, I think they'd be a lot of fun to do, just for like a cool force for, I don't know, like space weirdos or anything like that. That'd be, I think, a lot of fun. Good morning from Central Illinois, watching with the wife and daughter. We need a countdown to TMX 2024. Well, it should be in early June, so there's a long countdown. We're looking at 8 months from now, 7 months, something like that. Yep. But yeah, I will hopefully have like actual dates soon. I have to coordinate with the people at the university, and the people at the university sometimes don't know specific things ahead of time as well as they would like. Specifically, they do this thing where they clean all the buildings on campus are heated by steam, I guess. There's this big, huge building that makes steam and sends it all over campus, and I don't know. but they call it Steam shutdown. So sometimes after the kids are out of school, which, you know, June, they will have a Steam shutdown weekend. And then what that means is that, like, there's no running water or something happens or the AC goes off. I don't exactly understand it, but they're always trying to make sure that they don't schedule TMX, or that we don't schedule TMX during Steam shutdown. So, but the problem is maintenance doesn't tell them, you know, a year in advance when Steam shutdown is going to be. So that's kind of a thing too. But yeah, so I'm procrastinating buying magnets to finish building the Dune Crawler. I hate that you can't swap weapon loadouts without magnetizing the parts. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that's nice about this guy here, the Sentinel, the armored Sentinel, is that plasma gun is just stuck on there. Like, he's not. It's just a hole and there's like a post, and it just it works out. It's just pressure fit on there. Like, I don't. Again, like, when I take it to go someplace, I just take that thing off, because otherwise it's going to pop off possibly in transit anyway. But for using it on the field, you know, running around doing stuff like that, you know, playing a game with it, it's not a problem at all. So absolutely. So I'm procrastinating buying. I read that one. Just hoping to get back to a normal routine and detach from the nightmare of the last 2 weeks. Got to get back to building and painting and gaming. Well, I hope everything goes well. Got an armful of rule sets to read through this morning while I listen. Nice. Thought you were moving away from 40k after the bad taste of the major revisions of the recent patch chaos. Well, Combat Patrol is a little different, because Combat Patrol, for the most part, doesn't get tons of changes. They don't change the points because there are no points in Combat Patrol. The Combat Patrol is the Combat Patrol. You buy the box, that's it. They tell you how to build it and say, well, you should use this gun versus that gun and stuff like that, and they tell you all that. But, so yeah, Combat Patrol is not getting, well, some of the core rules when they change, I think, affect Combat Patrol, but I'm not 100% sure. There's been a lot of, like, discussion online where, like, oh, well, we changed this stratagem. But there's, like, it's hard to tell if they want you to change the stratagem in Combat Patrol or just in regular 40k. And so there's some of that. But for the most part, a lot of those tweaks and changes, specifically all the points change junk and all that stuff and whatever, the constant points change, that doesn't affect Combat Patrol at the very least. So, because again, there is no points in Combat Patrol. You build the box the way that they tell you in the PDF that you download for free, and then boom, there you go. So there's that. Now, the plan was originally to build several 1,000 point lists. Because I've got the stuff kind of purchased and a lot of it's already built, I will probably work on a 1,000 point list for the Guard once the Combat Patrol is done. But my plan on having a 1,000 point list for Blood Angels and a 1,000 point list for regular Space Marines, that's highly unlikely at this point. So, yeah, I might take those Space Marines, because the Space Marines that I had set aside to do a 1,000 point list, they're already built and their bases are textured. They're just not primed or painted or anything like that yet. So they may end up being a regular Grimdark Future army. I think that, yeah, I'm definitely going to sit down and look at what I've got and then try to figure out what I can turn into a Grimdark Future, like regular, like 2,000 point or close to 2,000 point army, and then see how that works out. I can also use parts of it for Grimdark Future Firefight as well if needs be. So there's that too. But yeah, so that's kind of where it's at right now. But as far as like my plans for having several 1,000 point armies for 40k, that's not happening as much. I've tried everything, but still can't get back into the irregular Discord channel. I may need a direct invite. Well, that's weird. I didn't know that wasn't working. Huh. So generally what you have to do is you have to hook up your Patreon to your Discord account. But I'm assuming you've probably already tried doing that. I'll see if I can find a link for, because this has happened before for certain people as well. So I'll see if I can find a link to go from there. And if that doesn't work, I can try doing a direct invite and see if that works too. But if it's a direct invite to something that Discord thinks you're not supposed to be in, I don't know if it'll work, but I'll look into that. Yeah, Discord is annoying. I had to reboot this computer this morning because it was being real slow and weird. And then Discord I'm like sitting here, you know, I see it's getting closer and closer to 9 a.m. and Discord is just like, oh, loading patch 2 of 14. And I'm just like, ugh. And it was real slow and chuggy and took forever. And it's I kind of just wish it wouldn't load automatically. I wish it would just like when you want to run Discord, click the thing and then we'll do it. I'm sure there's probably a way, but it's I don't know. I feel like Discord's getting bloated. Maybe it's just me though. Maybe I'm just getting bloated. What I like with Tau is Fire Warriors can be strike or breach your team, and the Ghost Keel battlesuit is one cool looking model. And the Ghost Keel is very cool looking. Morning from good morning, Tio Adam. How you doing? Good morning from overcast Kansas City. I'm way behind. There we go. Afternoon from sunny London, just back from the TT Combat store. TT Combat paints, indeed. Many. Nice. Sunny Southwest England. How you doing? Cold Hudson, Illinois, listening while cutting the lawn. Wow. Yeah, I think we're done cutting the lawn for the year, unless Austin gets warm again. But I think we're okay. I think my wife, she cut the lawn like a week ago or two, and I think it was the last time. Cloudy and chilly in Tennessee, really considering getting OPR's PDFs to play with my son. Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. Blood Bowl has too many feel-bad moments for a starter game, in my opinion. If you can get it, get Blitz Bowl. Blitz Bowl is the like kind of smaller version of the game. Not physically in scale, but just the pitch is smaller. You use fewer miniatures. It's something that you can usually only get through Barnes & Noble, though. But you might be able to get it online other places. Or you might be able to get it online from Barnes & Noble. Good morning from nice and cool Southern California. Nice. Blood Bowl's a bit crunchy for newbies. I hear Blitz Bowl. Yeah. Will you be attending LVO next year by chance? I think so. I think I will be attending LVO in 2024. Yes, I think I might be doing a little bit more traveling next year than I have in the last several years. I haven't been to LVO since 2020, just before the pandemic started and everything like that, because it's usually in late January. So we were hearing about, coronavirus, but it was predominantly overseas and things like that while I was there. It wasn't until I went to Reno for the Gamma Trade Show when everything, like while we were in Reno for the Gamma Trade Show, the Game Manufacturers Association, while we were there, that's when all of a sudden the NHL got shut down and the NBA got shut down and all kinds, and Adepticon got shut down. Like we were at dinner one night and just like on the TVs, it was just like, oh, this is getting closed down. This is like all kinds of stuff all at once. And I was like, oof. And then we flew back on a plane that was half empty, which was weird too. So anyway, but yeah, so the plan is, I think, to go to LVO this upcoming late January. Good morning from EonWalk. That's how you say that, folks, in case you're wondering. EonWalk. What about Combat Patrol do you enjoy? I know you like it over Kill Team, but I do not recall you talking about the reasons for it. I like it because it is, I think it's still a smart way for them to get people into the hobby. Well, let me take that back. It's a smart way for them to get people into 40K. It is still generally that idea. And I still mostly feel that, but initially it was a situation of them like saying, look, it still is free, right? I mean, other than obviously you got to buy the models, but you buy that box of models, all the rules that you need to download for it, free. You don't need to buy a codex. You don't need to buy the core rule book. You don't need to buy any of that stuff. All the rules are free for it, but the models are something you still need to buy. And it's $160 and you have all the models you need. And you also don't have the analysis paralysis of figuring out, well, how do I build my list? How do I do this? Blah, blah. It's just, here you go. And so I think still it is a good idea for people getting into 40K. And I think it's also for me, as a person who's been in 40K on and off for years, since 5th edition, I'm not a huge fan of like really crunchy list building and having to mess around and being like, well, this is not the ideal thing and this synergizes better with this and this is that and blah, blah, blah. I just like being like, look, just tell me what to take here for this small box that I can like put together and have a good time, you know, building and painting and all that kind of stuff. Like that's what I'm looking for generally. I was also looking, like I said, to expand some of them out, not all the way to 2,000 points, because that's crazy. Like 2,000 points is so many models in 40K. It is nuts. In comparison, specifically now, like as I've been looking at it, like one-page rules, 2,000 points is, it's basically 2,000 points of one-page rules is almost like 1,000 points of 40K. So, you know, you're going to be buying a lot of models if you want to keep playing 2,000 points of 40K. And so I was more excited about the 1,000 point thing, going, well, that's going to be fun. But like I said, there's been so many rules changes and so many points changes. My Manticore for my 1,000 point Imperial Guard has gone up 45 points, and it's done it. It went from 105 to 125 to 150, I think. There maybe someone just said on Twitch on Friday that there's been another points update. So there's like a 1.4 of that document now, I think. They could have been trolling, I don't know. But nonetheless, the problem was it wasn't surprising when they were like, oh yeah, the points have been updated again just recently. Like since the last time you made that video, I was like, sure they have. Wouldn't surprise me. But I don't know. But I think that's part of why I like the concept of it, is just the fact that, and I know I've had people go, well, you say you don't like the list building in Kill Team because it doesn't have enough choice, but you like the fact that you don't have any choice in list building for, Combat Patrol. Well, yes, I guess that's it. Like, don't tell me I have choice and then not really give me any choice. Just tell me I don't have any choice. You know what I mean? Like, this is the Kill Team for this. Boom, build that. That's what you got to do. You don't get any wiggle room. Now, the problem, though, of course, is that we used to. 2018, you had lots of wiggle room. And, Warcry is still, you need a leader, and then you need a bunch of other dudes, and it needs to add up to 1,000 points. Go build your list. Have a good time with it, you know? So that's one of the things I like about, Warcry, is that you can do all kinds of crazy things, and they give you so many different models to choose from to put into that particular Warcry for that particular faction. But man, yeah, like with Kill Team, especially with Space Marines, like when that compendium first came out, they're like, well, take 5 Space Marines. Okay, that's it. I mean, like literally, like you can't mix and match, and it's just, I don't know. So that's part of the issue. At least with the combat patrols, you usually get a bunch of different things, you know? Like my guard, I have like 2 squads of 10 shock troops. I've got a Cadian command squad, which is 5 models. I've got 2 bases of the artillery thingies, and I've got the little robot walker guy, the armored sentinel. So that's a bunch of different things to choose from. It's not just like take 20 or 30 or 50 guys. Done. That's it. That's your entire list, you know? So I guess that's the difference there for me. Just ordered a bunch of Unit 9 minis. I'm not familiar. The name sounds familiar, but printing at 44 millimeter and 75 millimeter because my eyesight is not what it used to be. Question: do you modify the scale of your minis? Don't fit. I've talked about scale a bunch in the past. Like, as long as they're close-ish, it's okay. And the reasoning for that is because some people are tall and some people are short, you know? I think in that video, the reference that I made was that, Kevin Hart and The Rock have been in several movies together, and they are the same scale, but they are not the same height. You know what I mean? So it's okay when you have a model that is taller than another model by a bit, maybe even a head taller. Like, I'm easily a head taller than my wife. We're the same scale, you know? But sometimes terrain can be an issue. And sometimes, depending on how much of a scale there are differences, if you've got like a model that's like 28 millimeter, maybe a little bit closer to 25 millimeter, and you put it next to a 40 millimeter, like Shatterpoint or Marvel Crisis Protocol model, that's when all of a sudden you're like, that's a very big, that guy is, there's something going on there. This guy's way too big, or this person's way, way, way too small. That kind of thing. So yeah, that's kind of the main issue, I think. But if it's like a difference between 28 and 32 or stuff like that, it's generally not a big deal. That seems to be doable. I'd recommend Warcry for a first war game, even if you don't like the theme. It is so intuitive and easy to learn that you can get the core ideas really fast. Interesting. Are all 40K figures older resin and metal in the same scale as the newer ones? I have a metal Archon that would work well with Combat Patrol. Yes, mostly. You will see a lot of people that say that GW has got like a scale creep thing going on where everything's getting a little bit bigger. That's not completely untrue. But, you know, like if you take like a Space Marine model from the late 90s and put it up against a Primaris model from like, you know, this most recent release, they're going to be a different height for sure. But Primaris are explained as being just literally bigger. You know what I mean? It's not like they're just like, oh no, they're the same guys as before. We just sculpted them bigger. That's not the case. Like in the stories, in the fluff, Primaris guys, like if I remember correctly, a normal Space Marine is generally about outside of their armor, I don't know, 7 foot tall. And I guess Primaris guys are even taller than that outside of their armor, like almost 8 foot tall. So when you start to see the scale now and you put a Primaris model next to a Imperial Guards person, whatever, like a shock troop, they now look like they should, in my opinion, because the Primaris dude is way bigger, you know, and that makes sense. Whereas back in the day, an Imperial Guard model versus a what a lot of people call firstborn, you know, Space Marine, they were nearly the same height, and that's not the way that it was mentioned in the books and stuff like that. So some of the models are getting a scotch bigger, but it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Vampire Masquerade 5th edition is the most recent one that puts narrative and story first instead of fights, so I did my best to write good narrative. Nice. Blood Bowl also has the advantage that GW let it go fallow once, and the player base kept going, so it at least is less vulnerable to edition shifts and poor decisions by GW. Also true, for sure. My weekend in LA and San Francisco last weekend was pretty fun. I can see myself coming to San Francisco for weekends in future, budget permitting. There are good mini board game cons in San Francisco. I've never heard of a San Francisco, I don't think. San Diego, maybe. I can't remember where KublaCon is. But I don't know of anything like that in San Francisco specifically. But I'm glad you had a good time. That's cool. I'm a pretty big sports fan, especially NFL. Well, there you go. Then you should definitely take a look at that. Have you checked out the game The Doomed? I have a copy of it. It's just out of arm's reach, but I have a copy of it over there. I ordered it off of, I think, Amazon. To take a look at it. It's interesting. It's an interesting thing. There's some things in there that I'm like, I don't know. That's a good question. Like I think I talked about this before. The fact that there's no range to movement. Like I get it with weapons. We've done it ourselves in a couple of games, like Space Station Zero. There's no real, like your weapons have the range of the entire board. And that makes sense because guns can actually shoot a pretty long way. You can start, you know, talking about effective range and things like that, and that's fine. But it seems like, you know, like normally you have a movement range. This guy can move 6 inches per turn. This person can move 4 inches per turn. This person can move 10 inches per turn. There doesn't seem to be any movement. You just move wherever you want at all times in the Doomed, and that seems odd to me. But I do want to like dig into it a little bit better. Good morning from Millington, Michigan. Can you please share your thoughts on the best non-Games Workshop Orcs and Goblins models? Goblins, I don't know, but Orcs are probably going to be from Cromlech with a K. Yeah, I would say Cromlech with a K. They're from Poland, but you can find their stuff usually around in certain areas of the country and stuff like that, or you could order it maybe from places and things like that. But yeah, I would say Cromlech probably makes the best Orcs that aren't GW. Also a Bears fan, so pain and adversity is a motto I live by. Well, there you go. Malev, how you doing? Same Steam system at UNC Chapel Hill? Sure, yep. Got an orange and blue theme on hold for my human Blood Bowl team. Go Bears, Broncos, and Illini. I think I got that right. I also hear that Blitz Bowl is rather hard to acquire. My brother-in-law looks for it every time he's in the States. It is hard to find it in stock. Yeah, that is a problem too. I don't know why. I was just having a discussion with a friend about this last night about why GW just doesn't like to make stuff be in stock. And he believes that it has to do with corporate, like, just like, look, we sold out. You're like, yeah, but you only made like, 1,000 of them. You're like, yeah, but we sold out though. You're like, but you could have sold 5,000 of them. You're like, yeah, but we wouldn't have sold out then. You're like, okay. So yeah, I don't get that. Building 4 tables of terrain for Dystopian Wars event. Oh, that's kind of cool. Your next combat patrol is a single scale Titan. I've had a lot of people say, well, they should make a Titan, you know, or, well, Imperial Knight. They should make Imperial Knights for combat patrol. And I'm like, I don't know how well that would work, frankly. I don't know. Like, I don't think you could just run a single knight. You know what I mean? So there's that. But what about, I don't know. That's a good question. Like, what about, I'm trying to think, like, what are those armiger guys? You know, the little war dogs or whatever they're called there. That's a possibility as well. I don't know. Maybe. Little armiger guys would be the best way to go, I think, is actually to run several of those. I know that the little armiger guys in 40K, last time I looked, are around 150 points. And if you figure that generally kill teams, or sorry, not kill teams, combat patrols are between, like, I know the combat patrol, if you add up the points for the guard, is less than 400 points. It used to be, when the game first came out and the new points were first released, it used to be 365. And I think it's roughly the same. So, you know, you could run like maybe 3 armigers and then see how that works out. It might be just fun to try it out, but yeah. Let's see here. Late to the party, but here I am. Well, we're glad to have you. Waiting on the bus to go to pub quiz. Nice. Have you had a chance to play OPR 3.1 yet? No. I thought maybe we might try to play Grimdark Future Firefight, which is the skirmish version, when I was at Dragonfall last weekend, but didn't end up having the time. Did get to play a game of Combat Patrol with Sam, his Tyranids versus my Death Watch. I lost heartily on points. Both of my combat patrols that are finished right now just don't have enough units to hold objectives. They've literally, my Space Marines are 3 units and my Death Watch are 3 units. So it's real difficult to hold objectives. By the time that we finished, though, I had wiped out most of the stuff on the board. He had also wiped out most of my stuff on the board. We were down to like the last few units. So I was like, felt better about like, well, at least I'm not like tabled. But yeah, as far as points were concerned, I got smoked. So it's also because I'm a bad player. So there's that too. I had a lot of leftover command points most of the time. So, goodness gracious, I'm way behind. There we go. Late to the party, but here I am. There we go. OPR. Good morning from New York. Just put 1 gun on my Dune Crawler and we'll call it whatever when I play. Magnets are a bridge too far for me. Sure, and that's not a problem either. I don't miss 40K rules at all. I can understand that, sure. Nice meeting you at Dragonfall. Love the content. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Dragonfall was a great time. I'm in Los Angeles, so there's an overwhelmingly amount of Warhammer 40K players. I'm going to try to spread the gospel of one-page rules and plant the seeds of heresy. Gotcha. Discord loves to hang around in the background and run automatically, especially on startup, and bog down your system. Yeah, it kind of does. Having bought Blitz Bowl as an on-ramp for Blood Bowl, when you decide to upgrade, you'll only really need a 16-sided die. Don't worry about the scattered markers on the ruler or the starter box. Might need one more cut of the front yard. Blitz Bowl is awesome-tacular. Nice. Went to the Danish War Museum today. There's a display in the War of Afghanistan. The soldier's bedroom pre-deployment had a hobby area with Games Workshop paints and minis. Oh, that's kind of nice. Yeah. Western New York seems like a distribution issue. Yeah. Good morning from Colorado Springs, working on a Martian game board for Combat Patrol. Do you have a favorite terrain or landscape to play on? I guess probably urban would be most likely the case. I do like all of my sci-fi models predominantly have like an urban style kind of gray base usually. When it doesn't matter what game system I'm painting them for. If I'm painting sci-fi models, I have like a specific recipe I use for texturing the base and then for painting the base usually. And that's what almost always happens. Now, every once in a while, like there's this robot guy here from, well, no, he's still got a gray base too. Yeah, so he's got a gray kind of urban base here. This is a model from Arch Villain Games. This is a 3D print. I did a video about how to paint like, weather robots and stuff like that. This is the guy that was in that, but it's still got a very grayish base. I also did an orc guy from them, like a big tall orc guy. And I talked about how to do armor, I think, like, metal armor on fantasy models and such. That guy did not end up having, well, he wasn't a sci-fi model, so it wouldn't have mattered. Anyway, he didn't have my normal base that I would put on a fantasy model either. Because he was standing on like a weird stone tablet thing, so I painted it kind of sandstone kind of, you know what I mean? So it kind of depends, but I generally paint all my bases the same, which sometimes comes back to bite you. Like, I don't know, maybe not, but like the guard here, right? Like these guys, you can't really tell in this picture, but these guys are on like gray urban bases, but they're also gray models. So it's gray models on gray bases, and it doesn't necessarily like, pop as it were. But I just, yeah, I mean, in my mind, when like it makes total sense if they're fighting in an urban environment for them to be urban colored. Like that's how that stuff generally works. When you're like fighting in a place that has a lot of jungle stuff, your army starts wearing a lot of green. When you're fighting in a place that has a lot of sand, you start wearing a lot of tan, like that kind of situation. And they being military, being what I think of a little bit closer to human military as opposed to crazy space marines and chaos dudes and whatever, it makes more sense to me. So I could have changed their base colors so that they contrasted against the base a lot more. But like I said, I have a tendency to like to keep my bases all kind of the same color, dependent on whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, stuff like that. But so all that to say, yeah, I generally like urban the best, I think. Let's see here. Kelly, how you doing? Hello, fellow and cello. Indeed, yes. My wife had a gig last night, so Nick was on the road, but she got back she got back later in the evening. I was following Team Covenant when they were at Gamma show as everything was shut down so wild. Oh yeah. I bumped into them. Not that, I don't think it was in 2020, but I've talked with them at Gamma 2018, 2019, somewhere in there. Finally made it back for another live show. Nice. Good morning, Uncle Adam and fellow minions from Arizona. How you doing? Had to change tubes in my bike today. I got bored today, so I learned how to play Phil Collins in the Air Tonight on my keyboard. There you go. Only Space Marine points updated Friday. That, I guess, would make sense, because they just came up with a bunch of new Space Marine stuff. Well, that's good, then. Now to learn how to do the drum fill on my E-drum pads. Nice. Putting together some Cyberpunk minis from the Monster Fight Club line. Those are nice. They are a bit taller. Excited to get them ready for a game or two. Yeah, I bought some of those. Well, I bought the Combat Zone starter box thing or whatever at Gen Con. But I also bought some singular, well, not singular models, little little like blister pack models, but you get 3 of them in there. I bought some of those separate, not to use for Combat Zone, but to just use for other stuff. So, exactly. Space Marine points will change soon. I feel sorry for who bought the Codex. Yeah, well, I swear I remember them saying, when they announced 10th edition at Adepticon, that they weren't going to put points in the codices anymore going forward. I swear I remember them saying it was only ever going to be digital points. And I have not looked at either the new codices, whatever, but I swear that people have said, oh yeah, there's points in there. And like immediately as soon as the book comes out, the points are invalid. If any of you out there have seen either the Tyranid Codex or the Space Marine Codex, let me know. Are there actual points in there? Because I swear that they said during the announcement that they weren't going to be doing that anymore because they knew the points would be changing. So the points would be digital only. You'd only find them as PDFs or whatever, or that kind of thing, or in the app. But I swear I've heard people say, oh yeah, no, there's points in the book and they're already, I thought they weren't going to print them anymore, but I could be wrong. I kicked around the idea for a hot second about getting the Space Marine Codex, and I just kind of can't make myself do it. So I've just been like, meh. The way I look at it, the benefit to the Guard is that we probably won't get a Codex till at least 2025. So, you know, I'll be able to keep using the indexes for quite some time. There was no Blitz Bowl in the stores a year ago when my wife was there in the summer and the kids were there. In the stores they visited, that is. Gotcha. Sure. Do you think that many errata and changes to how the army works prevents players to delve into Warhammer? It's what kept me from it so far. Your general hobby videos are enough to watch your... yeah, I generally do. I think that when they change things so drastically, so frequently, I think that newer players are just like, I can't keep up with what's going on here. Like, how am I supposed to build a list when you guys change the points like every month? You know what I mean? So yeah, no, I think that's part of I think that's part of a bigger problem. I also very strongly believe that on purpose, I really believe this, on purpose, they put stuff out that is undercosted, so it's amazing that people will buy it then early on and go, I'm going to put a bunch of these in my army and I'm going to kick people's butts. It's going to be awesome. And then they change the points to make it like properly pointed, and then they sold a bunch of it, you know, like, because they keep coming out with stuff that is so overpowered at the points cost, and then people are like, wow, I got to get 6 of those are going to be great, or whatever, maybe 3, depending, you know, if it's battle line, then you're going to get 6. And so you spend a bunch of money on these models, and then they go, oh yeah, we have to adjust them because they were too powerful. And I think that they do that on purpose. I really do. They keep doing it. Like, it's hard to just go, oh no, that was a mistake, when they do it every single time they come out with a new, like, you know, update to stuff. Like, you know, it's happened already with the Tyranids to some degree. It's happened already with the Space Marines, from what I understand. It happened with Leagues of Votan. Remember them when they came out and everyone was just like, oh good lord. And then, you know, yeah, it drives me nuts. So let's see here. Hello from Dusseldorf. Have a fantastic day. Well, you too. Guard are bigger now. I don't know that they are. The shock troops, when you compare them to the old Cadians, they might be just a tiniest bit taller, but they're not as thick and chunky as they used to be. Like, if you put an old Cadian up against the current shock troops, like, their thighs are about the size of the wrists on the old Cadians. The old Cadians were very thick with 2 C's. And the new ones are more, I think, properly proportioned. Scale is a different thing altogether, but proportion's a different thing too. So yeah, I feel like that's the case. I do, and I've got them both on my desktop upstairs, downstairs in the hobby room thing. And so yeah, I think it's an interesting thing. This was a Battle Org bigger. I never really had access to any of the old metal models back in the day, so I don't know. You can also use forced perspective. That's what they did in the Lord of the Rings movies. True. Since I'm at work in Elko. Well, there you go. I'll probably never play Warhammer Old World, but I have to get some Bretonnians. It's nighttime. Nice. Yeah, I can't see myself ever playing Old World either, because it's a rank and flank game, and I'm not really into those. But like I said, some of the models are kind of cool looking. I don't know that I see myself getting any of them necessarily, but I guess it depends. Like I said, the regular, like, normal ground troops and stuff that came in that Cities of Sigmar box, like, those guys are cool, and I just want to put, like, regular guns on them for reasons. I'm very intrigued by The Doomed, primarily for kit bashing opportunities. I mean, technically you can kit bash on any kind of game, but that game does obviously, well, most miniature agnostic games do lean heavily on kit bashing. Good morning from Columbus, Ohio. How you doing, Andrew? As a Bears fan, I agree. Nothing but pain and suffering. I've been hearing that it's not been going great. GW need like 2 more factories. I mean, you're not wrong. They need a factory in the States, in my opinion. But, you know, they need a factory in the States. They need a factory in Australia. That would really help a lot. But they don't want to do that because that would then, you know, the shareholders wouldn't get maybe as big of a dividend this year if they spent money and put it back into the company like that. So, you know, even though long term it would make so much more sense and save them so much more money. But on the other hand, then they couldn't charge, well, they shouldn't be able to then charge as much for the exchange rate, you know, when stuff comes overseas. I forget what it was recently, but I looked at the price on something in the UK. Like for some reason, I accidentally had it set on UK on the website, and I looked at the price at something, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, doing the math in my head, that should be about this much. And then I turned it over to the US site, and it was so much more expensive. It was like, I was like 65 pounds, but it was like, I don't know, $100 or something crazy like that. And I was like, that math doesn't make any sense. Like we're paying $20 extra for no reason. You know, oh, well, we got to ship it overseas. Okay, cool. But still, you know, and obviously, yes, our friends in Australia have been doing the same thing for a very long time and to a greater degree. But if they could then if they just put a factory over here in the States, especially since we buy a lot of the product, probably, I think the States buy more GW product than the UK does, just because there's more of us over here. There's a whole bunch of us bumping into each other and you know, whatever. Yeah, it's weird. They used to have a facility in the States, I believe. I swear they used to have a factory in, I think, Memphis, Tennessee, which is where their U.S. like headquarters is. But they don't anymore. So I don't know. I do very strongly believe that a lot of the things they're doing recently are not necessarily to make money, but to look to like show, oh, hey, look, we sold out. Oh my God, we're doing so great. We're doing all this stuff. We're selling out. We're doing all this stuff. Maybe they're trying to get bought. I don't know what's going on. It's weird though. They seem to rather sell out 1,000 units than sit on 1,000 units if they make 6,000. I mean, but having things available gets people to buy more over time. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't have like, because Vince and our games never sell out because they're print on demand and they can't really sell out because we don't like if we were to get them printed, we've had a lot of people go, you know, you make a lot more money if you got them printed in China or whatever and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, but then once we sell 5,000 copies of a game, then we have to decide, well, do we want to order 5,000 more or not? Or and it's just, we don't have to worry about that because when you order one, they make one and they ship it to you, and we don't make as much profit, but we also don't ever have to think about it again, and it's always available. It's not like, oh boy, I sure would like to get that game, but it's sold out. You know, we don't do that. So, and I know that that's not necessarily something they can do as easily at scale. I get that, but we're also two dudes, and they are more than two dudes, so they should, and a $5 billion or maybe 5 billion pounds. I can't remember if it's 5 billion pounds or $5 billion, but they have a very high, very large market cap is what they have. It's a lot. They should be able to get this figured out a little bit better than they do, but it doesn't seem to happen. What does your wife keep microwaving? I think probably she microwaved some, we call them breakfast sticks around the house here, but they are these Jimmy Dean, it's like a corn dog, but it's for breakfast. So instead of being a hot dog, it's a breakfast sausage inside there. And then instead of having cornbread around it, it's like kind of like pancake stuff with a little bit of maple flavor like mixed into it. They're pretty good, but that's what I think she was probably microwaving. Let's see here. My goodness. Phil Collins rules. You're not wrong. Wow. There we go. Okay. GW is producing things for many systems. There is no deep conspiracy with their production. They pump things out as quickly as they can, really, with which the conspiracies would die. I mean, I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think it's just business that they're doing. Also, they don't have enough factories. You're right. I mean, that we kind of talked about that. It would be smart of them to have at least another factory, potentially in the States. I'm not too interested in the old world. I've enough to pine for and build and paint my limited hobby funds. Yeah. Maybe a damaged immobile knight and 2 or 3 war dogs. Yeah, could be kind of interesting. It'd be a fun, like, sort of just scenario thing to see what can happen. Sure. Last I knew, Blitz Bowl was a Barnes & Noble exclusive, and they quit carrying it. Oh, that sucks. Hold these 3 objectives with 1 single night. Failure is not an option. Well. Let's see here. Pub time. Have a good time, Terrier. Imperial Knights in Combat Patrol is the same problem as Monsters in Warcry. Too big for the setting and kind of OP. Yeah, I mean, they would have to be tweaked. I think it would be fun just to try it out. Like take a unit, you know, like a Combat Patrol against, again, maybe not even a regular Knight, but maybe, because I honestly sort of think that Knights are a little OP in regular 40k, because you'd be using the regular 40k stats, and that's what you would definitely have to start tweaking to begin with, because the 40k stats and the Combat Patrol stats for models are not exactly the same, you know. Like just Oath of Moment alone is different in Combat Patrol than it is in 40k. Any plans for future expansions on previously released games from you and Vinci V? So we're coming out with a zine in November, which is an annual thing we're going to put out every year. And it will have a micro game in it, which is just a very small little simple game. And then it will also have an add-on, kind of a small little add-on thing for generally 2 of our previous games. So this first zine will be coming out. We'll have an add-on for Reign in Hell and for Space Station Zero. So there's that. But yeah, that should be coming out in, like I said, early-ish to mid-November. Episode 2 introduces the Sea Peoples. I don't know what that's about at all. Speaking of combat patrols, I'm finally getting my Space Wolves painted. Nice, nice. Looking forward to the new Kings of War, Clash of Kings, and Twilight Kin. If you ever get over your adversity to rank and flank, I think you would have a lot of fun with ambush boxes. I just don't like rank and flank. I just don't like that kind of moving around rectangular stuff. It's never been a thing for me, but good day from Southern Oregon. How you doing? I'll sign up to volunteer for Origins next year. Can't wait. Nice. I've been to Origins in a while. Plan to look for STLs to use as characters in Blender. I have used a couple of them, but they are enormously memory intensive. Sure. The biggest hang up with 10th edition 40Ks, you get victory points from objectives at the start of your turn instead of at the end like Age of Sigmar. Too many games to remember rules for. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Again, I was having a discussion with a friend of mine who's a game designer, predominantly more board games and things like that, but we were having a discussion last night. He was in town for a board game convention at the university, and so I picked him up when we went to dinner, and he was talking about the concept of, like, you know, there are companies out there that will make a game, like a miniatures game, and then just basically kind of reskin it so it's the same rules kind of over and over again, but with different sort of, you know, tweaks and like different, you know, stories, different subject matter, whatever. Forbidden Psalm is one of those. You've got Forbidden Psalm, which is fantasy, and then you have The Last War, which is the same game, but it's alternate history World War I. And so it's the same rule set. They just add a little bit to it. And then you got Kill Sample Process, which is, again, the same rule set as Forbidden Psalm. They just add a little bit to it. And also it's a totally different subject matter. And they just kind of do that, you know, and then that way, once you learn one of them, you know the rest of them. And there's benefit to that to some degree, like the 5 parsecs type games, 5 parsecs from home, 5 leagues from the borderlands, 5x from the Y, whatever. All those games have got kind of the same engine. They just tweak them, different things for different reasons and stuff like that. Vince and I like the concept that the rules should be different for each game because the rules have something to do with what the game is like. Like the way that, what do you call it? The way that the initiative works for Reign in Hell is very different than the way that the initiative works for Space Station Zero or Majestic 13. And the reasoning for it is because of what's going on. In Majestic 13 and in Space Station Zero, there's a lot of shooting that's going on. Reign in Hell is all hand-to-hand combat. There's no shooting. So you don't ever have like a real fog of war kind of thing going on. You can kind of see which way the battle is kind of going at any given time, as because this guy's got this kind of headlock and this guy's biting this guy and this guy's punching that guy and whatever. So at every turn you can kind of see, oh, things aren't going our way or things are going our way or whatever. So the idea of rolling a die for each of your remaining demons and then now going, okay, well, I've got a 12 because that's like the top number on a 12-sider. And then I've got 2 10s, and then I've got a 4 and a 5, or a 5 and a 4, but my opponent has got an 11. So I'll go first, then they're going to go second, then I get to go twice in a row, and then they've got this, and you kind of get the lay of the land at the beginning of the turn, and it makes sense to the way the game is supposed to go. A game like Bolt Action, you reach into a bag and you pull out a die. Oh, that's one of yours, so you're going to go. And that is because you've got a real fog of war going on in a World War II game where there's explosions and smoke and dirt in the air. And so you're just reacting to what's constantly going on. You're not able to get a good lay of the land. Those types of things, to us at least, kind of matter as far as rules are concerned. I'm not against the games where they're like, look, we're going to build an engine and then just, add onto it and tweak it and change it for subject. That's a smart move too. But I don't know. For us, we just like to change things up a little bit because we think that the rules matter to the story and should be tailored a bit more to the story, I think. It's not just to be obtuse, for sure. Hello from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I got back into the hobby a little bit before the pandy. Never heard it called the pandy, but I get it. I see where you're going with that. You have provided me with a tremendous amount of insight and useful information. Thanks for all you do. Well, I appreciate that, Barry. Thank you very much. And thank you for referring to it as a pandy. That's makes me think of like a happy panda and not, what we had to go through for 2.5 to 3 years or more. I have to cut the grass at least one more time this year, probably 2. Well, I mean, we're pretty far up north. You know what I mean? So we shouldn't have to. Like, if I was like real fussy about it, then probably we would. And a lot of our neighbors are fussy, so they'll probably at least mow the lawn one more time. But I'm like, yeah, I don't really care. So getting my wife into skirmish wargaming, and we've decided to introduce her to one-page rule system as opposed to 40K. I would definitely say that would make sense, for sure. Keep trying to find Bronze Age Apocalypse and tabletop mini RPG crossover shtick. I do maybe 2 styles of basing, or 3, Ash, Waste, Gray. Yep, I've used to do that on my Chaos guys. Or what I call Battlefield Detritus. Is it Detritus or Detritus? Yep. And the third is what I call European Pasture. Yeah, when I do fantasy stuff, it's generally like, oh, look, mud. You know what I mean? Like, because if you're in a big battle, it's probably mud. Unless you're on like in the desert, or maybe in, whatever. I am the Steel Rift models that I'm working on. Those are all going to be sand-based, meaning I'm actually not using sand. What I'm using is Monument Hobbies has a texture paste. They have several. They've got coarse, they've got fine, and now they have basically ultra fine, which they say is snow, and it's white. It's bright white, but I put it on before I even prime. I don't care what color it's going to be. I'm going to prime over it, but because it's such a fine texture and it goes on very easily, it works great for sand. So I'm using that, even though the scale is still not right because we're talking about a giant stompy robot, but he's only this big. But still, it looks more like sand than anything else does. And I want my Steel Battalion's video game, Steel Rift. I want my Steel Rift stuff to look like they're fighting in the desert, because the way, like things have changed on the planet after the solar flares and stuff like that and whatever. So that's what I'm doing. So they won't match the rest of my models, but they're also a totally different scale. And you would never generally be like, oh, look, I brought these robots in. I mean, they could, but it would look weird. So that's how camo works. You paint equipment to blend in. Exactly. That's, head down in removing a bunch of mold lines and things, trying to get another priming session before outdoors, before it gets too cold. Yeah, I know what you mean. Snow bases are easy and you usually look good. There you go. Zambies, how you doing? I always thought the Cadian shock troops would have olive drab fatigues in another color for their armor bits. The khaki never does it for me. Yeah, I always thought that looked a little weird too, because it's so contrasty. I mean, it kind of like, I got used to it, but it's also just a situation of like it's like, well, so is it desert or is it jungle? Like, what are you trying to do here? You know what I mean? But yeah, so that's why, like with my guard, and you can kind of only barely see them there. They're predominantly gray, and then their armor is kind of like kind of a dark blue, and it works out relatively well. I think they're fun to paint, so that's cool. Working on new Terminators today. Hello from Ireland. How you doing? Let's see here. After all, painting Warhammer minis is what got me into screenplay writing in an indirect sort of way. Interesting. That's cool. Celebrating Orktober. Finished Shock Jump Dragsta yesterday night. Nice. There are points in the Codex, but there's a link for updated points values. Why do they bother then? Especially since they know they're going to change it before the book even comes out. Like, just, I don't know, put another cool piece of art on that page or something. It's just weird. And like I said, I swear they said that they weren't going to do that anymore. So they either changed their mind, or I misunderstood, or misremembered. That also happens. Codexes will tell you to get the points online. I think they feel like if you're stranded without internet, you should be able to play the game with just the books, though. I mean, I guess. I suppose if you're on the moon and you're like, well, let's play some 40K. I guess, yeah. Can't bring myself to pay for a GW paper product anymore. Wasted too much money in the past. I understand that. Blitz Bowl, an easy way to get a board and dice for Blood Bowl. It's not the same board. It's smaller. It's like half the size. So yeah, if you want to play Blood Bowl, the Blood Bowl pitch is not quite as big as a Kill Team board, but it's a good size, whereas the Blitz Bowl is like half of that, I think, if I remember correctly. Played OPR Grimdark Future Firefight last weekend with my nephew. Had a blast playing. Now building the new Terminators so we can move up for Grimdark Future. Nice. Nice. There are points, but the explanation is if you don't have internet. I gotcha. I getcha. War Machine went all digital for their rules in their app. Yep. Yep. Slept in after a rainy day of tree planting yesterday. Good morning from an overcast Hamilton, Ontario. How you doing? I slept in yesterday. It was kind of nice. I wonder if there are any STLs that can use to represent sea peoples. There is a company called Artisan Guild. It's either Artisan Guild or Artisans Guild. Something like that. They have like fishmen. They have like really nice fishmen. I like their models a lot, actually. I own a couple of them. Oh, I should figure out what I did. Yeah. Yeah, but I've got one that I've painted, and then I was gifted one actually at Nova, which I need to dig out and prime. But yeah, they're very nice. They're very nice models. So if you're looking for some cool fishmen and sea people type stuff and whatnot, Artisans Guild is a good one if you're looking for STLs. So I was considering 1,000 army of Ardmech, or 1,000 a 1K army of Admech after my combat patrol, and they just dropped all the Admech points because they're weak in 10th now, and I need like 4 or 5 more models to get to the same place. Yeah, there's been a lot of that going on too. Like a bunch of that had happened, I think, in the Guard, except for the Manticore, which is they just keep pushing up the price. And I'm like, and it's because of indirect fire. And I'm like, okay, well then maybe fix the indirect fire rules. I don't know. Like it just seems weird to, I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. Whatever. They 100% manipulate unit abilities and cost to sell models, except in the case of Scragrot the Looking, who was completely sold out when he was like 160 points a bone to the secondary market. I don't believe that any of these companies ever want to throw a bone to the secondary market, you know? Magic the Gathering, Warhammer, like any of these companies, because they don't get anything for the secondary market. That, like, if it was a situation like, like the whole concept about NFTs was like, well, when you make an NFT and then someone buys it, you get the money for it. And then if they sell it to somebody else, you also get a little bit of money for it. And every time it gets sold, you get a little bit more money for it. And that was great in theory, but it didn't work. That doesn't even get close to working in physical objects, obviously. Magic cards, 3D, whatever, miniatures and stuff like that for Warhammer. So I generally think that they're not trying to fight against the secondary market, but I don't think they get any kind of benefit from it. Asked OPR directly why they don't just make Combat Patrol analog lists, and basically said, "No, the community will do it," which is a shame. It'd make it so much easier to convert friends over. I mean, they got a lot going on, and they're not as big of a group. But yeah, I wouldn't see the bad side to doing it, except that they'd have to play test the heck out of it to make it so that it was like right. But yeah, the community very probably will eventually some point do that. But also they don't combat patrols are like I said, between 350 to maybe 600 points, it seems like. And then you've got, if you were to use the normal points, but they're tweaked. And then you have 1,000-point games and then 2,000-point games. In one-page rules, Grimdark Future, most combat patrols are right. If you take the combat patrol models as they are, and then you put them into Grimdark Future, most of them come to about 1,000 points in Grimdark Future. So you're kind of already there a little bit. You buy a combat patrol, you're probably very close to 1,000 points in Grimdark Future. So, you know, coming from a powerless rural Ontario. Oh gosh, well that's a bummer. Watched Discourse do a live watch of the Warhammer stream and felt bad for her budget that is going to take a beating with those new Bretonians. Yeah, I don't see myself buying any of those. I mean, they're not bad sculpts, but I don't see myself buying any. Painting Phase just did a video on kit bashing the new cities of Sigmar models into a guard regiment. Nice. I can see that. I feel like, though, those guys are a bit chunky enough that a las gun's not going to look great on them, but definitely, like I said, like a regular kind of bolter or a slightly older bolter, I could see that being cool. If Games Workshop wants me to play, they'll have the 10th edition Codex for the Tyranids and Space Marines still available by the time I finish painting my Leviathan box. Otherwise, bring on the FOMO. They generally keep the books in stock. Yeah, that's they generally keep the books in stock. It's not usually like, oh, we're sold out, but that's a different story because they're getting those printed, I think, still mostly in China, or did they get to start getting the books printed in Europe now? I know they were trying to get the books printed in Europe because just everything in China, like the shipping and all that stuff that was going on during the pandemic, a lot of companies were like, we should figure out a way to not have to get stuff shipped from the other side of the planet as much because it can be real problematic. So I think they were trying to find book manufacturers in the EU somewhere closer to them, but I don't know how that's turned out. If any of you got the Space Marine Codex, it should say on the back where it was printed. Hopefully, maybe we'll know. But yeah, they do try to keep those in stock longer until eventually they get to a point like when you're about to, switch editions or whatever, then all of a sudden they like cut it off. But it's the models that have a tendency to sometimes sell out. And it's not even so much the models, it's more the box sets. Like a lot of times models will come out later again, but it's these box sets that they make, in my opinion, too few of, and then they're like, hey, look how fast they sold out. It's a big deal. And you're like, eh. 100% factory in Australia or somewhere in Southeast Asia. Exactly. Like if they're trying to grow the, like, especially like the Japanese market and stuff like that, they need to have the stuff a little bit closer. I believe other companies have followed GW's business model of putting units out there to buy with a low point value only to change them later. A Song of Ice and Fire, Star Wars Legion. I mean, it's a business tactic for sure. One of the big reasons why I more and more these days like games that don't sell the same models. You know what I mean? That's why I like the indie stuff a lot, because you just don't have to worry about that. Rainy Northwest Indiana, how you doing? How much value is attached to the fact that the product is made in the UK? I don't know. I mean, in comparison to like where a lot of stuff is just made in China, or I'm not sure. I was amazed that I did not know this, but I just assumed it was all made in China. But the Wargames Atlantic stuff, like I used their URA kind of guys for Majestic 13. They make a bunch of great models and stuff like that. But I really like the stuff from Wargames Atlantic. That's all made in America. Like the company's in the UK, but the factories that make the plastics are in America, which I was like, wow, I didn't know that at all. That's very cool. Even UK to Ireland prices are wild. It's cheaper for me to buy from Wayland Games, including import duty and shipping, than it is for an FLGS because they up the price for UK to Ireland for no reason. Yeah, and they're awful close to each other, aren't they? Yeah, that does seem strange, doesn't it? Shipping is marginal these days. Tell that to people in Canada. Because, like, yeah. Like every time I'm like, well, I hear people all the time who are like, I'd like to order that, but I live in Canada, so the shipping is as much as the thing or whatever. There's a lot of that going on. They're brewing Guinness in Chicago. They can make GW in the US. Sure, I don't disagree. Good day from a cold and sunny London, UK. Just back from a wargaming show. Nowhere near as big as Salute, but fun and friendly. So that's, I mean, I like local shows. I mean, you know, Dragonfall last week, that was a lot of fun. Last weekend I was there, and that was, I mean, to be fair, they're getting to 400 people. That was 400 people this year. So it's grown a good deal. Like last year was 300 people. 2022 was like 300 attendees. This year was 400 attendees. So that's a nice growth bump. There was a decent, good-sized 40K tournament going on, good-sized Age of Sigmar tournament on. There was some Star Wars Legion that was really cool. Like the Star Wars Legion guys had the best-looking tables, but that frequently happens. I don't know what that is, but yeah, like I've been to a bunch of conventions lately, and the stuff from that you see for like specifically Legion, Shatterpoint, you're starting to see some Shatterpoint stuff going on here and there, and Shatterpoint's got some decent looking stuff, but the terrain for Legion tables at conventions like Gen Con, those tables were amazing, and same thing here. They're real nice. But yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, but it was a good convention. If you get the chance, you're interested in going to southern Wisconsin, you should take a look at Dragonfall. Old World is a mishmash of resin, plastic, and metal, and some minis are new sculpts and some are old. Yeah, that's also the thing that I was kind of surprised by. They were like, oh, hey, we're doing this whole thing. We're making this new thing. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then you just start seeing how many of these models are like, yeah, this is going to be in metal. And it's going to be the old version from 25 years ago. And you're like, well, then why bother? I don't know. I feel very much like Old World is going to be basically the Horus Heresy of Age of Sigmar, except maybe slightly worse because they're just going to use a bunch of old models from the old days. So yeah, that's another reason why I'm not super interested. GW can't even ship out things that you buy in the UK. My mail order had half of it removed the day before it was shipped because out of stock after payment. Well, that's weird. Being based in the UK certainly doesn't help with shipping costs. True. They did have some issues with the whole Brexit thing. I'm sure that's part of it as well. They did have a factory in Memphis. It's just a distribution center now. I believe they have a huge Space Marine in front. Yes, that's what I thought. I thought they did manufacturing way back in the day. Kingdom Death. Whoops, everything moved. Where are we? Kit bashing. Kingdom Death. There we go. Seems to work on the same model as GW. Sell out and leave money on the table when people go to the aftermarket. Yeah, I don't get that. I mean, I guess it's like, I guess it's in comparison, like it is so terrible to have stock. Like, oh my God, we've got things in a warehouse and people might be able to get things next year. That is the worst, as opposed to just like, well, we sold out. You're like, yeah, but I don't know. I feel as if here's the deal. It's a longevity thing. If you want this game to do well over time, like if they want more people to play Kingdom Death, but you can't get anything but the starter box for Kingdom Death, like all that other stuff that you might be interested in getting into, you're like, well, they don't make it anymore. It was limited edition, and now it is 3 times the price on eBay. I don't think I'm going to get into Kingdom Death. I don't want to do it because I can't get the things I want to get because they don't sell them, because they sold out of them, because they only made enough and then they sold out of them. That's part of the problem. So, and you know, that's not Kingdom Death's fault. It's their business model, and it seems to be working out okay for them. They usually have a big booth at Gen Con. Those things aren't cheap. So there's that, but there's a lot of companies, I think, that are doing that because they can always come back and look how much stuff we sold out of this year. My goodness, we sold. But yeah, if you just didn't make enough, you sell out all the time. I get it. But over time, you're going to get fewer and fewer people interested in your game when nobody can get the stuff because they can't get at it. You know, if you make stuff available, you can get new people into the game. But, and I don't understand business that much, but maybe the idea of selling out and not having enough and not being able to grow your game is so much better than having some in a warehouse. Oh my God, we'll all die. You know what I mean? I understand you get taxed for having like stuff in a warehouse and all that kind of stuff and blah, blah, blah. But geez Louise, I don't know. It just seems like it's short-sighted in that you can't grow your player base when you can't get with the stuff to the player base. That's part of the problem. I wonder if there's any marketing accounting magic to having made in the UK on the box. Oh, I see what you're saying. I don't know. Kit bashing thing for me is the most enjoyable. Yep. Before COVID, I was buying used and sometimes new secondhand GW miniatures from the UK cheaper than the US. Even after shipping, you had to wait a week or more, 2 more, then shipping went up. Yeah, it did, yeah. Used to be in Glen Burnie. Gotcha. I have the sold out issue with Don't Look Back. They offered an online only STL release for only the Kickstarter, but now retail box, the duty and shipping is more expensive than the game to import. Yeah, I can understand that. Online only STL release for only the Kickstarter. See, that doesn't make any sense. If it's an STL, you should be able to get it after the Kickstarter. Like if it's, maybe I'm misreading it here, but I literally hate the idea of digital scarcity. There is no such thing as digital scarcity. Like the whole concept of NFTs was the stupidest thing because it was digital scarcity. That's what they were trying to sell. And that's why it failed, because that's not a thing. Anyway. I've been complaining about NFTs too much today. That's strange. What are the must-have to play Kill Team rules-wise in books and stuff? I'm not familiar with Kill Team. So Kill Team, there's a core rule book, and then you probably need the compendium. The core rule book has all the rules in it and whatnot, and the compendium has all the different armies and the stats and the points and all that jazz in it. Although I'm sure well, maybe, I don't know. There's not actually any points per se, but it's not so much points as that they tell you this is how you build a list, and you can take this, this, and this, and then you get to choose between this or this, and blah, blah, blah. They don't do points anymore, specifically in Kill Team. But you do need those 2 books. It used to be, in Kill Team 2018, you needed 1 book because they put both things in the same book. So it was a bit thicker, but there you go. And that was a $40 book, and it allowed you to play the game. And then with the new version, 2021, you had to buy a $50 book for the rules and a $50 book for the compendium. So there's that. Now, you might be able to find a starter box that has the core rule book in it, but not all of the actually, most of the big boxes don't have the core rule book in it. So, like, I don't know, Gallo Dark, I think. There's a bunch of different ones where you get like 2 forces and terrain, but there's no rule book in there per se, like specific core rule book that you need. There is a book in there, but it's specific to that particular box. I think Into the Dark, was that the one that came out that had the rule book, the core book in it as well? Was that the beginning of that new season? But yeah, that's, you at the very least, you're definitely going to want the core rulebook. And if you buy a starter box that has the core rulebook in it and it has 2 forces in it, then you don't need the compendium because those 2 forces, their rules should be in the box. But if you were like, I want to buy the core rulebook and I'm not going to buy one of those big boxes, I'm going to use other stuff, then you'll need a compendium to be able to build lists, basically. Print on demand works for books way better than mini sets. Sure. Well, sure. But I mean, like STLs, and that's where you start to see that too. Better forecasting by GW would make them more money. If the accountants tried to trend too conservative, it can cost money. It seems like it. Yeah. I mean, new player, your budget video has given me good ideas on what to get for build my Raptor army. Nice. Pound is weak, so the troll trader is a good deal. Shockingly cheap shipping. Oh, that's kind of nice. Nice. That WoW was very Owen Wilson of you. Speaking of which, are you watching Loki? We watched the first season. We haven't started watching the second season yet. GW warehouse space is limited too. Well, you know, England is a small country. I get that. The money not made from selling too few doesn't show up on a balance sheet. The money not made from selling too few doesn't show up on a balance sheet. Well, sure. I mean, yeah. Like you can be, yeah, that's a good point. We're like, look, well, we sold everything out. And you're like, yeah, but you could have sold more. Well, that doesn't show up on the balance sheet. That's true, I suppose. One of my local FLGS used to sell used figures and models at quite the savings. Too bad they closed about 4 years ago. Well, that could be part of the problem. I mean, not necessarily, but like I've seen plenty of shops that will also sell used stuff, but sometimes it can be a hassle too, you know. Companies will definitely come up with schemes to create more sales within their own limitations and failures. GW certainly does. Sure. Don't Look Back theme is good, but the core box is way too expensive. If you don't care so much about the mini side, check out Final Girl. Same theme and awesome game. I've heard about Final Girl. I haven't seen much about it. I know that, I mean, I've seen like marketing and stuff for it, but I don't know, I haven't like watched a game or whatever. GW stock is up 20 points year to date, so they have no incentive to change much. That is the big thing too. Yeah, exactly. They don't have to think about the future when, well, stock's up right now. Okay, cool. What about a knight that runs on a set of AI rules as part of a scenario with 2 combat patrols? Each player has a patrol for the knight that fights randomly off that. I mean, that'd be kind of cool, for sure. You know, like that's the type of stuff that they could produce that would make people more interested in playing. Like they should have some cool scenarios like that in, I don't know, there should be, I would be very surprised if they don't come out with a combat patrol, kind of like I think that's good. It kind of came out of nowhere. Kind of like like Kill Team Annual or Chapter Approved or one of those books that comes out every year. Like, I think it would be surprising if they didn't do that for Combat Patrol. Now, they've said the rules will always be free, and that's so far been true. You can use the core rules. They have the special download for the Combat Patrol stuff, and then they have, obviously, all the lists and things like that. That's all free. But it's not to say that they couldn't come out with a add-on book that makes your Combat Patrol have more scenarios or do other this or that or blah, 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 or whatever. And also add in fun things like that. Where, like, what if your Combat Patrol played a solo game against a knight? That'd be pretty cool. It would just give people more incentive to be interested in trying out that system, which then hopefully leads you, that's the whole idea, into playing full-blown 40K. And I've also talked in the past as well about how there are other combat patrols that they should come out with that are not necessarily boxed, but that are for other sets that you may have purchased. Like they basically did come out with a combat patrol for Indomitus, at least on the Necron side, because that's where the majority of those models came from. But the Doomstalker doesn't come from that box, so that's a separate thing altogether. There should be stuff like that where they're coming out with rules for people who are like, oh, I bought that weird box that had like Genestealer cultists fighting Custodes or whatever, and then that way you could use, you could buy the regular Genestealer cult box, or you could use the stuff that came in this box, and that would give you a reason to dig it out from underneath your bed and actually use it again. And admittedly, that does not make them direct money, but it's probably going to get you to buy more paints and tools and things like that. Or at the very least, maybe you've got 3/4 of that stuff. Like, I bought a Doomstalker. I technically bought the Doomstalker because I wanted to use it for a different project, but I was glad I bought the Doomstalker when I realized that was the new Necron, like, big piece. So I was like, well, I've already got the rest of the stuff all from Indomitus. The Doomstalker is the extra, piece that I don't have. And luckily, as it turns out, I did actually have it. For a hot second, I thought I had another Canoptic Reanimator, but I didn't. I had bought the Doomstalker. So anyway, 4-player kill team, 1 night, 3 kill teams, free for all. Be fun to try for sure. Working on a War in a Box style game where it is a 2 army, 1,000 points each, OPR style, but 6 to 8 millimeter. Going to try to bridge the gap between wargame and board game. I think there's a market for it? I don't see a lot of that scale unless it's for Battletech. Like, Battletech, Steel Rift, big stompy robots are generally between 6 and 8 millimeter scale. But, like, yeah, they're coming out with the new, what the heck do they call it? Legion, whatever. It used to be Epic 40K, but now it's Horus Heresy, but again, little tiny scale. I forget what it's called. It's not Adeptus Titanicus. It's Legionus something or other. It's whatever. Legionus, it was supposed to be out in September, and it's not. That game, we'll see how popular that is, but I don't know. The real small stuff, for me, I'm not interested, but there might be people out there who are. Anyone got suggestions for Death Course STLs? I'm looking to print some. What's the name of the company? Archvillain, the same folks that make like this robot guy here. This is a 3 print from Archvillain. They did in their Patreon, and I think you can get it now on My Mini Factory, but they did a thing probably 4 or 5 months ago that well, maybe a bit longer, but they did a whole like list of things, and they had a very kind of deathcore vibe to them, which was very cool. This thing I like, you should like it too, even though it doesn't appeal to you. What software do you use for book layout? InDesign, Adobe InDesign, sadly. I could use Affinity Designer, or is it Affinity Publisher? Affinity Publisher. One of the two. Affinity is another company that's like kind of going up against like Adobe to some degree. They're not going to take anything over anytime soon, but they make Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer, Affinity Publisher. There's maybe another one in there, and Wargame Vault, who we work with to do all of our printing and all that kind of stuff, everything like that. They basically are like, we either work with InDesign or Affinity Publisher or whatever it's called. Those are the only two things they work with. But I already have InDesign knowledge, and I've got a background in it to some degree, and I pay for the software already anyway, so that's what I've been using. But you could also, if you wanted to, use Affinity, not Infinity, Affinity. Affinity, I believe it's Publisher, is their book layout type stuff, or magazine layout, or just layout in general. I think Designer is kind of like Adobe Illustrator, and Photo is like Photoshop. The benefit to using Affinity is they generally charge you once, as opposed to every friggin' month. So yeah, you buy it, and then there you go. And it's not particularly expensive. They should, but won't, introduce Titans into Combat Patrol as a mission type. Titans or Knights? Because Titans are 2.5 feet tall, generally, and are Forge World. Whereas Knights, Imperial Knights, are like 7 inches tall and are plastic. As a mission type, free online. Adjust the stats to make you have X turns to take down the thing. Possibly, yeah, that'd be a ton of fun. Like, yeah, it'd be a super smart move for them to do. But well, I got scuttlebutt that the original Gaslands Blaster supplements have been compiled and published in a softcover book. Expansions for racing on Mars too. That's kind of cool. Let's see here. Just mow and mulch the leaves up here in Estate River. Okay, cool. Good morning from a still early Hawaii. I bet it is, yeah. It's the first time I'm catching you live in a while. I'm going to play the first game of Blood Bowl League later today. Nice. Sci-fi troops want to stand out. It's just what you do. I like to keep them. Well, the benefit is that also when I generally make my bases that kind of just gray urban rubble kind of color, then unless they are specifically gray urban rubble colored figures like my Imperial Guard, which makes sense in my mind there, anything else then stands out on that. So if I've got them on, if I got like, I don't know, like those, I did the same bases for my like Blood Angels themed Space Marine Combat Patrol, and they're all bright red, obviously, and all that kind of stuff, but they're on the same gray kind of like urban rubble street kind of thing. They said you won't need codexes anymore at the start of 10th, but I knew they were lying. See, that I don't remember them saying you won't need codexes. I remember them saying, oh, there'll still be codexes. But I swear I remember them saying that there wouldn't be printed points anymore. But no, they're never going to get rid of doing codexes. They keep wanting to make more money off of those books, and even though they're basically useless at this point. But yeah. Blood Bowl 7s has a specialized pitch for sale. You just need to supplement your 6 figs from Blood Bowl or Blitz Bowl. I've heard about 7s, and I'm assuming it's that you have 7 models instead of like 12 or 13 or 11 or whatever it is. Wargames Atlantic, Digital Atlantic has C people? Oh, I had no idea. There are all sorts of files online for pitches and STLs for figs if you like Blitz Bowl. There you go. I'll check out Artisans Guild. Nice. Not fish people, though. The history sea peoples. Oh, like sailors? That's a different story than fish people. Oh, that's true. They also lied and said the 8th edition codex could be used for 9th. Well, they could. I mean, technically, yes. They did not have to make a they didn't have to rip the Band-Aid off and do indexes like they did in 8th when they went to 9th. You could use it, but technically, yeah, it wasn't great. It'll be very interesting to see if, so I assume that in less than 3 years now, 11th edition will come out, and then it probably won't have indexes, but then 12th edition in less than 5.5 years or whatever will come out, and then that'll be back to indexes again, where they'll rip off the Band-Aid. And I'm wondering if they're just going to keep alternating as they go down the road. The other option is that when 11th comes out, they just scrap all the indexes again and scrap all the codexes again, and then have index cards and all that jazz, and just keep doing that every single time. That would not surprise me either. Sleeping in is now getting up at 8 a.m. for me. Oh, wow. I've never caught a live stream before. Just wanted to say thanks for the multiple OPR recommendation videos. Finally gave Grimdark Future a shot, and it was excellent. Well, nice. Good to hear, Victor. Sunny and chilly, 66 in the bottom of Texas. Trying to get a couple of crews together for Space Station Zero. I'm going to get my wife to play with me. Nice. OPR needs to make a mech game. I'm a little surprised they haven't, to be honest with you. That's a good point. Good point. If you want OPR Combat Patrol lists, make them, post them, share them, be the change you want to see. True, true. Especially if you want to convert friends to play OPR. 9 degrees Celsius here at the time. Good reason to stay indoors if you can. Indeed. PDFs and STLs, FTW, yeah, I get you. I've come to the realization that I'll probably just need to be one of the I'll probably just need to be the one to make OPR battle reconnaissance lists. Sure, I could see that. Books are so easy to manufacture compared to the kits. Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, books are way easier. Absolutely. That's why Vince and I make books and not models. Like, we've had a lot of people be like, hey, why don't you guys should make miniatures? And we're like, that's a lot of work. Seriously, like, it's a lot of work. Even if it's just STLs for people to print, you still be able to, it's just a lot of work to find a sculptor that's good these days that has any time, because they're all generally, if you're a good sculptor at this point, you are probably running your own Patreon, and you are doing just great. You've got plenty of things to work on. You're making money. Everything's cool. So yeah, trying to find a sculptor to work with these days is the hard part right off the bat. Made in China for Space Marine Codex. No kidding. Huh. I thought I heard that they were trying to get their books starting to get printed in the UK, but evidently they haven't, or not necessarily UK even. You know, UK would be ideal, but even like EU wouldn't be the end of the world. They should get them printed in the US. There's plenty of great printers around, especially in where I live. In Wisconsin, there's printers everywhere. There's giant print companies all over the place in Wisconsin, and it's because of all the paper in Wisconsin, because of the trees. You've been making me think about Steel Rift. I love the idea of the corporations. I want to do an Amazon group. Alexa, fire the railgun. Nice, nice. Yeah, so I'm working on my freelancers right now. I was working on them a little bit yesterday afternoon, and they're a lot of fun. They're predominantly like orange. I posted a picture someplace of them, but I'm not done with them yet. And then every one of them on one of their arms, because some of them only have like a left arm, some of them only have a right arm because maybe they got like a cool gun over here on their shoulder instead or whatever. But I've tried to make it so that on every one of their arms, they have like a panel that is like a cream color, and that's just going to be their thing for whatever reason. But when I do the corporations, or sorry, am I doing corporations or authority? I think I'm doing authority. Or maybe I'm doing corporation. I don't remember what the other box is. It's one of the two. It's definitely not the tracked authority. I know I was looking at them and I thought about it for a hot second, but I'm not sure. But the other one, whatever the most recent one is that I purchased, actually, when I start building that one, my plan is to go probably white with kind of like a mid-color blue accent. And that is being taken from, I think it must be the authority that I'm planning on doing. But if any of you saw that movie called The Creator, which I think is in theaters now, it's that kind of cool sci-fi sort of thing. There's a scene in that where these giant United States Army battle tanks come rolling over like the jungle, and they're just, it's not like, oh, there's a whole bunch of battle tanks. It's like 2, I think, battle tanks, but each of them is the size of like a city block. They are absolutely just monstrous. Like they hear them rumbling forward before they start even seeing them, and then they just start knocking over trees, and they're just these huge, massive, massive tanks. But the thing that's crazy about them is that instead of being painted your normal like olive drab or whatever, they're painted white, and they have some sort of tasteful like mid blue accents on them, and they say US Army, but the US Army is written in lowercase, which as a font nerd, that is a definite vibe. This is them showing the people who made the film that this is the new corporatized, there's a marketing department, corporatized US Army. Because generally when you're making a logo for something, if you want to show any kind of strength, you do it in all caps or whatever. I had a professor tell me years ago in a graphics class when I was in college, you'll never see a bank with a with a logo that's in lowercase, because you want to show strength when you're a bank. Well, my credit union's logo is all in lowercase, so that wasn't actually the case. But there's the idea of now trying to be a friendly corporation as kind of a thing. But it's U.S. Army, and like I said, it's just this massive, scary battle tank, but it's in white and blue, and it's cute. Yeah, so that's what I want to do with my next team. So I'll have a team that's predominantly orange with a bit of cream, accents, and then a team that's going to be white with some blue accents, and that'll be fun. It'll be easy to tell which one's which, too, which is helpful. But I think a corporate one would be fun, too. I still love books mostly, but for the stuff like rules, they get changed or updated a lot. Please drop books and post PDFs for download. Yeah, I agree. Since the Necron Codex is about to drop, any mention of the new Combat Patrol box? I haven't seen anything, but I don't keep up with the rule or the stuff as much as I should, I guess. Do you think GW gets some sort of government subsidies for not manufacturing in the States? I guess it's possible. I have no idea actually how that kind of stuff works with the UK laws, the tax subsidies, or I have no idea. That's a good question. UK to US shipping is still ridiculous. Yeah, it's not great. Shipping in Canada is insane. Also true. Yes. Did not know shipping was such an issue in Canada. I learned something today. Oh, yeah. There's all kinds of stuff like that. In Canada here, lately, I've been finding that it's more expensive shipping from the United States than it is from the UK. I've heard that, too. There seems to be some sort of war that is going on between the United States Postal Service and the Canadian Royal Mail. Is that what it's called? I could be making that one up. But yeah. Well, the only game from GW I'm currently intrigued by is Legionis Imperialis. That's what I was trying to come up with. Not like I need another money pit, but I have a hard time ignoring epic scale. Star Wars tables were so cool. They were really good. Like, it was a lot of 3D printed stuff, but it was also like very well painted and everything, and it was just very cool. I dug it. Oh, everything moved. There we go. What's stopping Warhammer geeks from playing the edition they like? Nothing, except that if you want to then play with other people, then, like, there are plenty of gaming groups out there who are like, the 3 of us amongst our gaming group, or the 4 of us, or the 5 of us, we still play 2nd edition 40K, or 3rd edition 40K, or whatever the deal is. That happens all over the world. But if you are like going to go into your local shop and try to find a pickup game, or if you're going to go to a tournament or any other kind of event, it's always going to be the newest version, because unless there's some very specific event where they're like, hey, we are playing, I don't know, what would be horrible, 7th edition 40K, and we're going to have 12 tables here, so we can have 24 players, so sign up for this tournament. Well, good luck. So that's part of it. Is it when you play an RPG, you are playing inherently with a specific group. If you play miniatures, the idea in a lot of situations, especially in a lot of shops around the country here, is that you're going to the shop and hoping to find another player, or you're like hooking up on the shop's Discord or whatever, and you're just finding some other person to play with, and you want to play a lot of different people with a lot of different armies, especially if you're thinking about getting into, tournaments, because you want to be able to practice and kind of, run your reps and blah, 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 all that junk. But if you play just amongst a small group, well, then great. You can run whatever you want. And basically, by design, all RPG groups are generally kind of small groups. So they can, again, run whatever they want. It's more modular, I guess, to some degree. Like you can just, well, it's based off of, modules, like especially in like D&D and things like that. You're going to play, the DM is like, I am running everything. So we're going to play whatever it is version that I want to play, because I'll be running it. And here's the module we're going to play, or here's the thing I made up that we're going to play, or whatever the deal is. But when you're playing in a miniatures game, it's like, well, I have my army and it's built in this edition, so I have to play somebody else who's got the same stuff going on, like using the same edition. If I decide I want to play 10th edition, you want to play 3rd edition, we can't play together. So, yeah. That's part of the problem. Star Wars Legion has very active 3D printing. There you go. Community that Fantasy Flight Games and Atomic don't seem to care about and just let run wild. I've seen that in a community since the game came. I mean, I'm honestly surprised that there are some pieces of terrain that I see that I'm like, I am surprised that Disney's not going to go, you can't, don't do that. But then maybe it's not a big enough market for them to care about, because there's a lot of 3D printing, FDM stuff and whatever. But yeah, I mean, and there's other stuff too that would be just like maybe slightly difficult to mess around with in court. But honestly, Disney's got more money than pretty much any sculptor out there for the most part, obviously. So they could just be like cease and desist. And I guess that sculptor would be like, all right, cool. But yeah, it kind of depends. I like rule books, actual hard copy rule books. As long as I have the book, there's a way to play. That's true. I get that. Can't understand why I want to... The reprint of 40K Rogue Trader first edition, the GW is going to print on demand. It just seems fun. It's probably unplayable, though. Yeah, kind of. I bought years ago at Adepticon in the Forge World booth. They were selling reprints of the Rogue Trader, that first edition 40K book, and I bought one just because I never had any access to it previously, and so I bought it just to basically like check it out and have it and stuff like that. And it's cool. It's very cool. But yeah, it would not be very, it would be very difficult to play in this day and age, for sure. Do you still use Song of Blades and Heroes to teach new people about wargaming, or do you think another game is superseded in being the easiest small skirmish game to teach? I still think Song of Blades and Heroes is probably the easiest game to teach at conventions. Yeah. I just haven't done it in a while. I mean, pandemic and all that stuff. Speaking of Kingdom Death offer upgrade stickers for their rulebook that matches the original artwork. I wish GW would do that. I'd rather buy a sticker pack than errata. Yeah, I could see that. Sometimes, though, I've not looked at a lot of Kingdom Death books, but I do believe that the ones that I have looked in have had a lot of extra white space around a lot of places. And that makes it easier to be able to basically design a sticker so that you can cover something up, because if it adds 2 sentences, you're not going to you're not going to screw things up as much because you've got a lot of white space, you've got a lot of wiggle room. GW packs so much stuff into there that if they had to give you a sticker to put over a paragraph, but it added 3 lines to the paragraph, well, now your sticker is overlapping on the next paragraph, and then it's a whole thing. So that would be a cool thing, but it isn't necessarily the way that they do it, I think. Remember, Adam, you and Vince are bad capitalists. It's true. It's true. 40K Rogue Trader is perfectly playable. It was a skirmish game with light rules and lots of atmosphere. Yeah. Don't Look Back, STL, Kickstarter only. I even emailed them about it as I was flabbergasted, and they confirmed it. See, that just doesn't make sense to me. I don't get that. Like the whole idea of well, we made an STL, but it's limited. That's, yeah, I don't like that. To be fair, they make the expansions available. The only things they sell out permanently are the brown boxes of individual premium miniatures not essential to the game. Sure. I think that, but still, I get that. It's not that you're like, I can't play the game, but if you are a person who's like, I'm interested in playing the game, and these models are these weird limited edition things that I now have to go on the secondary market if I want to get access to, I don't know. Would it be that hard for them to continue to make them, or to maybe put them on a schedule where, hey, announce 3 months in advance, look, we're going to be producing more of this. So if you're interested, get on this list. We'll email you, and then you can confirm yes. And then it's almost like a little tiny mini Kickstarter, almost kind of, where they would be like, you know, the models that are out there that have been out of print could come back into print, and then you could do that, you know, work it that way. It seems like it would be more inclusive to people who would like to get access to that stuff and have it in their games. But to just be like, nope, that was a one-time thing and you missed it. Sorry. That just doesn't, I don't understand how that helps the business. It really doesn't. Digital scarcity is stupid. You're not wrong. Let's see here. Into the Dark was the beginner box for Kill Team Season 2. I bought that one. Okay, so yeah, that one's the one that comes with the rule set. So it also has the core book in it, as they say. Anyone play God Tier? My LGS has a load of it. I don't see it moving. I have some. They sent me some years ago. It's one of those games that is definitely kind of a gateway game between board games and miniature games. It has lots of miniatures, but it's played on a hex board and there's really not much in the way of terrain. So it kind of reminds me a bit of Warhammer Underworld in that way. I generally like games with terrain. The models aren't bad, but again, they're also just like kind of pre-built, slightly softer plastic, that kind of thing. But they're not terrible. But I don't know anybody that plays it, honestly. It was actually considered impolite to play Warhammer 40k 2nd edition to win. Well, I can understand that. At this point, when starting Kill Team, I don't think the compendium is a viable option. It's more like Warcry now. Buy the core rules, the army box, and the army book annual that has their rules. Has there been a new annual that's come out since 2021 for Kill Team? I haven't seen that. Those new Striking Scorpion minis are pretty nice. Let's see here. Where's the, here we go. This is crazy to me. So yeah, the fact that the game is going to be played, it looks very much like the game is going to be played completely on platforms, maybe? I don't know. It's weird. I mean, I guess you have some ground stuff, but you have all this water stuff too, where you're like, oh no, you can't walk in the water. I don't know. Again, this doesn't. I'm of two minds of it because they've decided that they're going to sell the stuff separately. You're going to buy the Salvation box, which will have scouts and the whatever Eldar dudes, the cone heads here, and also like these weird pieces of terrain. And that's it. That's what's in that box. Then they're going to sell this box separately. So the benefit, I guess, is that you're just not getting completely buried in meat trees like you did with the last season of Warcry. I see that. That's a benefit. But number one, if you do want both of these things, then the problem is that it will cost more. Like those other boxes, like for the Shadow or whatever, Into the Dark boxes, those were like what? Like, I don't know, 165, 185, whatever the price was. I bet if you take this box of this terrain and then this box up here and then add them together, I bet it will cost a bit more. But you do get the option of not having to buy the terrain if you don't want it, which is nice because then you could just be like, cool, I'm going to buy these guys and these guys in the box and I'm going to get these weird pieces of terrain that I could do whatever with. But I could put them on regular terrain instead of having to put them on this walking around or jumping from place to place kind of terrain, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're grasping at the terrain. I feel like they should just skip it. They should just be like, here's some sets we put out. Buy the ones you want. Let's not make it a season. You know what I mean? Like, let's just stop trying to be video games. I don't know. That's my opinion. I like these scouts. They're kind of cool. They just look like regular scouts. They're just taller, I feel like, you know, but they're not bad models. I've never liked Eldar, so nearly anything they do just doesn't do much for me. but nonetheless, you know, they're people, you know, that they probably do need a refresh. Lord knows. Lord knows. Let me do that. And let me go back to here. Nope, that's the wrong browser. There. Beauty of Combat Patrol. Colleague bought Combat Patrol last week. He has finished painting this weekend. We have a game scheduled for the 23rd. It will be our first game of 40K ever. See, that's what Combat Patrol was designed for, was to get you into 40K. Like, it's in the 40K combat, or sorry, in the 40K like core book. There's like, if you're interested in getting into 40K, start with Combat Patrol, and then either go to like competitive types play, matched play, or narrative play. But you start with the Combat Patrol. They have a little chart in the book, and that makes sense. I get it. But yeah, I enjoy making fun narrative house rules that focus on fun and telling a progressing narrative when playing at home. The game is much more fun when cutting out all the meta chasing. Oh, for sure, absolutely. Just took a look at Final Girl. Thanks for the recommendation, chat. I'll probably get it, enjoy it, though. Don't look back. I wanted because it was co-op. That is the benefit of that one for sure, is that it is because it's co-op, because it's basically everyone trying to get away from the evil monster type of thing or whatever. It's like Adeptus Flyroundicus, but on the ground. Yeah, that's basically true. Yeah. Small fights. There you go. Blackside Studios is bringing out mobile arms as a 28mm stompy robots. I dig it. Then that terrain plays with the other 28mm terrain. Yeah, I looked a little bit at that. It's interesting. It doesn't seem 28mm though to me. I don't know why. It just doesn't seem like they don't. I have to go back and look at it again. I don't know. It just doesn't seem quite. Well, heck, we got some time. Poke. And we'll go here and to this, and we'll make a new tab, and we'll go to Black Site Studios Mobile Arms. See, well, I guess it depends on how big the bases are. Like, to me, that doesn't seem like a 28mm mech, because if it was a 28mm mech, I would think it would be like 5 to 6 to 7 inches high, right? Somewhere around there. Kind of like a Imperial Knight, right? But I don't know. Like, I can't tell how big this model is supposed to be in comparison to anything. Like, to me, this still looks like 6 or 8mm scale, but I could be wrong. And then there's also pilots too, but yeah, I don't know. That's one thing I wish that they would have done here, is then to show like, this is what it looks like on the terrain. You know what I mean? Like, show a picture of, like, you know, here they have a painted one. That's cool. But like, what's it look like next to a regular size 28mm model? Like, are these things, like, how big is that? I can't tell if the base is this big around or if it's this big around. And, you know, so that's the thing that was confusing to me. And also all this stuff is sold out, which is weird. I'm assuming these must be resin. So, okay, so here it's a 60mm base, so that's a decent sized base. So maybe these guys are, like, in the real world would be like 20, 25 feet tall, maybe. That could be right. Cast in high quality resin at our factory here in Waco, Texas. Sure, yeah. In that situation, I can get it. And they're not evidently interested in doing STLs in this situation, so that's fine too. But yeah, they definitely have like a more of an anime type vibe in that situation too. So that's, you know, that's cool if you're into that kind of thing. Spectacle of mass epic units is a pure joy. See, I don't like painting tiny people. Rumors that Kill Team is getting a new version next year. The new model being army boxes and terrain being separated. If they just tweak the rules, you could be interested. So I think that if they do that, they may do the thing kind of like Warcry did when it went from version 1 to version 2, where they didn't change it very much. If they make a new version of Kill Team, I could see them making a tweak between version 2021 and version 2024 or whatever. And it could just be a bit of a tweak as opposed to a full-blown kind of redo like they did when they went from 2018 to 2021. So we'll see. I don't know how they could fix it to make me interested. Maybe they could. I don't know. If they just tweak the rules, would you be interested, or do you still want points? I just want the army lists building to be interesting, and it's not to me, because you can literally take two types of things. That's like the best you can do. And if you play Space Marines, you can take one type of thing generally. So, you know, like my old, and I've told this story a bunch of times, my 2018 Necron list had some Immortals in it, some Warriors in it, some Flayed ones in it, and a single Death Mark. That list is completely illegal in 2021. You can either take 2 units of, let's say, Immortals, or 2 units of Warriors, or 2 units of Death Marks. Who would even do that? But, or you could take, you know, 1 unit of Immortals and 1 unit of Death Marks, or 1 unit of Immortals and 1 unit of Warriors. But that's it. You can only have 2 types of models in your and they are 2 separate fire teams within your kill team. With Space Marines, for whatever reason, they're just like, you get 1 fire team, so you get 1 type of model. And for a lot of those lists, it's like, well, they all have the same gun, so I don't know, say that one's the sergeant and have a good time with it. That's just really dull. And part of that is then because then they made the slightly more interesting ones bespoke, either in a box, or else it's bespoke and something you got to buy through White Dwarf, and I'm just not playing that game. So the army building is really how they broke Kill Team, in my opinion. Let's see here. I wonder why we can't get a fantasy game with Final Fantasy artwork vibes. They did. They had, there was a game, what the heck was it called? Well, I think it wasn't fantasy, I guess, but there was Anima Tactics. That was very anime kind of Final Fantasy looking. But I think it might have been a little sci-fi. It's hard to tell. Yeah, but Codex contains recycled images I'd love to look at. I mean, they could sell books separately, just don't make them rule books. You know what I mean? Whittle Goblin is working on a vampire skirmish game called Night Thirst. Looking forward to that. Miniature agnostic games are the future. I agree. And yeah, I've heard about that. That's cool. Let's see. Playing Tau is an emotional roller coaster. They're either too powerful or too expensive. Yeah. There we go. Well, folks, it's 11 o'clock here in my neck of the woods, and so I've got to get going. I hope that everybody has a good rest of their weekend, unless you're already Monday because you're over there in the Australia. Then have a good week. I will, let's see, I'll be on Twitch tomorrow night as per usual. So 7 o'clock Central Time, like I said, as usual. And I'll be continuing to work on the last piece of my Imperial Guard Combat Patrol and going from there. So hopefully we'll see you folks there. And thanks for coming by and hanging out. And have yourselves, like I said, a good rest of your day at the very least, and a good weekend, good week. You know, just have things good. Be good. I think that's a good idea. So that's pretty much everything. Hope you get some hobby time out of this. If you're watching it later, that helps too. So good to hear.